back. It's been a while since we've been here.
Little while.
We're in a new space, both physically and mentally, I would say. I think one of the reasons that we're continually brought back to this podcast is because of the growth that we're doing and we are focused on doing in our lives. And sometimes that growth gets really centered around us only for a little bit. And it's good growth. It's important. And we have done a lot of growing in the last year, which at some point we'll probably go more into. But today we're focusing back on a book that we read. And the title of the book is?
The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements, which we heard about from Sean and Saxony. And I'd never heard of this. Now, we've been working through and learning about just agreements and what that means. And we could do a whole podcast on what agreements are and how powerful they are. But that's not the point of today's. So keep me on track over there. But that's what caught my attention, when I heard this. And then we decided to kind of jump in. Not too long of a book. It's not too big. It's all the way over there. We didn't get it.
Oh.
It's okay.
It's okay. No
we
props
do have the
today.
book in studio today. In office. It's not really our studio, but yeah.
On Audible, it's only 2.5 hours.
Yeah, 2.5 hours.
So it is smaller.
I would say it's time-wise, it's a very quick read. However, there's a lot of deep thoughts here, and there's no way we're going to cover all of them. We're going to do our best to, like we always do, to shorten it, give little snippets here and there, hopefully tease you into reading the book yourself. But I would challenge you, like from the very start, this is not a book that you just quickly read through. This is a book that you read a little bit of almost every day, and you write, you journal, you think about, you meditate on, and because there's just a lot of deep truths here that are really, really important for your personal growth.
Yeah, I like that.
Anything else to add?
Yeah. I listen to it, and with kiddos, I'm usually like in a car or folding laundry sometimes. And
your part-time job.
Yeah. So it's a little more difficult for me to stop and write down something.
Yeah.
So, but luckily with my trusty app, we're slowly learning how to take notes.
Yeah, so now Audible, right, has this new thing where you can clip it and take a note. So I would just clip it and then speak to it. But I got these new Bluetooth things, and so half of my notes, I have no idea what I was trying to say in there.
And we didn't really think it through because we have the same Audible.
So now we have duplicate of notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we're growing.
Yeah.
So that's what's important, right? Okay. So before there's four main agreements, as you can tell by the title of this book, that it talks about and focuses on. But the intro part, I have more notes actually on the intro part than I do on the rest of the agreements. So you want to jump in, or you want me to jump in?
I'll let you lead out.
Okay. So one of the first things that struck me is, so the book talks about when you're born, and it talks about how many choices that we don't have, right? We didn't get to choose the family that we were born into. We didn't get to choose the religion we were born into, and so many other things, right, that we didn't get to choose in our life that was just a part of what was passed down. And each of those instances, we didn't choose it consciously maybe, but we came into what the book calls agreement with those, right? So whether it was a religion or a way of thinking or 100 different scenarios, the way you look at life, the way you approach life, there's a lot of it that we didn't get to choose, that just got passed down to us because of DNA. That's proven, that just got passed down when you were born, that you were born into it, and now your way of thinking is this certain thing, and you didn't necessarily choose it consciously, but you came into agreement in it. And I just thought that was really important to notice, because as we're learning, focusing on what your family has passed down becomes really, really important, and who they are and what they believed and the way that they think becomes really, really important, because it's a lot of your makeup of that subconscious part of your thinking that you're already, when you're born, you're in agreement with,
Yeah, and he just talks about how your parents' beliefs are yours when you're just this itty bitty. And I think it was right after that he gets into, and I don't love the word he uses, like domesticated.
Yeah.
When you become domesticated.
I feel like that's a trigger word.
Yeah.
I don't like the word trigger either, but I think trigger is a trigger word. But anyway, somewhere that makes sense in the universe. But anyway,
I get you. So when we become domesticated, it's just like I feel like that also happens in schools too. You know, you learn how to stand in the line. You learn to, not talk, or at home, you're just learning. And the word he uses is domesticated. But what it is there's a punishment for when you do something wrong,
yep.
and there's a prize or an award for when you do something right. And then you find yourself in a spot that you are trying to be something that you're not, because you want a prize, and hiding the parts that that is you, but you might get in trouble. That's
such a huge part, right? Because I mean, we're parents. We have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old now, right? And there's such a balance there where you want them to do right, but they were also created as an individual, right? And they have certain gifts and certain abilities. And one thing, like our prayer is that our Father would help us understand who they are, and help give us opportunities for them to learn who they are, not who we want them to be. Because it's so easy for us to go into parenting or in our own lives of we've been trained to not think this, not do this, right, based on a reward or not. And I have the same thing down. And what comes from that is a fear of rejection, because if we don't follow this person's thought process or what they think, we're going to be rejected. And if we're rejected, that's a huge fear. I'll get to that one later. That's another point I have. And so all of a sudden, at a very young age, we're taught to think a certain way, and we just almost put ourselves in a box, and we come into agreements with things that aren't necessarily maybe who we are. And that's a fine line, and that's a really present argument right now in a lot of things with gender cases and such. But we're specifically as Christians talking about who God created us to be based on what he has for us, and learning what that is. And as parents, as much as we love our children, we don't know what Grace and Gwen exactly are supposed to be. I mean, we're with them a lot, but God created them, and they both have so many little intricacies. And it's not my goal to mold them into what I want them to be. It's to turn their focus, and our goal to turn their focus inward to find out who did God create them to be, right? Anyway, it was a good point.
Yeah, that was good. What do you got next?
Oh, man. Okay, so then from there, right, it progresses to now we have this certain set of beliefs, right, based on what our parents or other people, not just our parents, not to just, I feel like we're throwing parents under the bus, but
we're parents, so it's okay.
Just throw us under the bus. Right? So now we have this certain set of beliefs that we operate by, right? And anything that challenges that belief makes us really, really uncomfortable, because that's what we believe. That's what we're supposed to do. And all of a sudden there's this really big uncomfort or expectation or assumption that is going to come based on what somebody else said we're supposed to be. So
I love that, because I think we experience that a lot from the way that we grew up and being in the real world. And I don't think we're different from anybody else. I think probably everybody goes through this situation. Sure. And
you look really good, by the way.
Oh,
sorry, I just had to say that. You look beautiful.
Oh, thanks. But when you finally go through that spot where, wow, this is uncomfortable, I think it's quite a leap of faith to do that, because it's actually quite easy to just go and use the neural pathways that you've been using for so long and not fight against it and get comfortable.
Yeah.
And so when we experience that, it motivates me to provide that for our children as well. So I don't want them necessarily to just disbelieve everything that anybody is going to tell them, but
Yeah.
question it and do your own research. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm naturally someone that is easy to trust. So all my life. So,
Yeah.
I just believed anything, if you told me something absolutely ridiculous, I would have believed you.
Yeah.
So this is,
The earth is flat.
I knew it. So yeah, I've learned to find myself enjoying the uncomfortable situations
Yeah.
of growth.
That's a big statement.
Yeah.
A
I'm
lot
going to
behind that.
put my signature on that one.
Yes. It's on the board.
It's
I
on
like
the
it.
board.
That's good. So next, and I think maybe this is just a quick one, but as human beings, there's an interesting point to remember again that we tend to punish ourselves over and over and
that was a
over
good
again
point.
for a mistake that we made, And there's not a lot of creatures, there's none really, other creatures on this planet that do that, but we relive our mistakes and continually punish ourselves over and over and over again. And man, that's a really negative, hard spot to be.
Yeah. And I can even do that to you.
Yep.
Like I can bring up something from the past and then, that just started all over again.
Yep.
You're beating yourself up. And there was, I probably have in my notes somewhere, but he said that no one, you can correct me on this one. Like no one is as hard as on you as you are yourself.
Yep.
That's not the right word.
You're the hardest on yourself than anybody.
Yeah, of course. We've heard that before, right?
Right.
But what's the word I'm looking for? You just said it, we
punish ourselves.
So
Yeah.
no one punishes you as much as you punish yourself. So when you find yourself in a relationship where they're someone that's abusive, but you see yourself even worse, that's in that situation, you're going to allow it because, you think you deserve it because you're punishing yourself.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I know there's a lot. I want to jump back real quick because maybe it would help if I give some context before we keep talking about agreements. Agreements at the core really is a thought that comes in, or a way or a belief that comes in that you consciously or subconsciously, you came into agreement with that thought, right?
Yeah.
So whether you're a victim and everything happens to you, and you agree with that, the moment you agree with that, it becomes it's like you just downloaded something into your operating system.
You took it as truth.
Yeah, and now that's your truth. So
Yeah.
so you just believe that's what truth is for you,
Yeah.
and it's extremely powerful. Like I think we have no idea how many things that we've come into agreement with. And that's really scary because you're accepting things as truth in that moment and you're becoming into agreement. Like, I agree with this thought, whether it's a self-sabotage thing, like I deserve this always to happen to me. Like, wow, that's a really powerful thought. Like, don't come into agreement with that, And we'll circle back, but I wanted to give some context to what does this mean, come into agreement with. And agreement is just that thought or that belief that comes and passes through your mind, like you're always a failure, or this always happens to you, or this is going to happen every time, that you believe. And as soon as you believe it, your whole body, your consciousness comes and you say, okay, this is the way that I'm going to operate from here on out.
I think I'm reading your note, but it says 95% of beliefs in your mind are lies.
That was such a powerful statement. And I don't know how you would really track if that's true or not, but I can certainly say it's a lot more than I ever thought it would be. When you really start looking introspective, at our small group, it says draw the circle around ourselves, right? And when you really draw a circle around yourself and you look at, again, we'll get to this later, but you look at working on yourself, you just realize that a whole lot more.
All right. I don't know if you have this written down in yours, but sometimes, I don't prefer the words that other people's use, but he starts to talk about how we all put ourselves in an hell on earth. And this is maybe a rabbit hole, but I don't like it when people use the word hell for you're living in hell. Because right now, Because my everybody's opinion is different, and their vision of what hell is slightly different. We have what we have in the Bible, but I see that as a place where there's no escape, where there's no God to go to, and we have that here. Yeah, you could choose to live yourself and be in misery, and but yeah, that's just my feelings on this. I get what he's trying to say. Yes, you can put yourself in a situation, and I have put myself in the situation where I felt like it just, living under this dark, deep depression or anything. And that's what he's trying to say in that. Yeah,
well, right, exactly. Hell's definition becomes really important there, right? And whether it's the literal definition of hell or whether it's the mental one, I mean, what happens is hell is it's an eternal torment, and that you just can't get out of. You're right, you're trapped. And he is right in that, right? In that we put ourselves in that so many times that it's always going to be this way. We're never going to get out of here, and nothing can change it. Nothing. That's some dark stuff, and we've been there. We've both been there. And it's not like you're abnormal if you have those thoughts. I think everybody has had those thoughts, right? Nobody talks about it, but we've had them. And so it's not a matter if you have it or not. It's, are you going to stay there or not? Because the truth is what you choose to believe. And maybe I'm jumping ahead, but the truth is whatever you choose to believe. So if you believe that you're always going to be stuck in that, you're going to be stuck in that, right? Mm-hmm. But if you choose to believe that the Father has a specific plan and a will and something for you, and he has a better life and he has a design, and we just have to find out what that is and live according to it, then you're going to find that too, But yeah, this is a powerful thing to think about, people living in hell. I mean, that's a deep statement for a lot of people to kind of grasp. Yeah. I think I'm going to only do one more before we jump into the agreements. And one that was very profound to me was our biggest fear actually isn't death, but it's to be alive and embrace who you are. And this was just really thought-provoking for me, because a lot of people, I think, would believe that, death is the scariest thing. But I think if you actually thought about it, it's not. Because that's why a lot of people find death is the way out, right? And what is the most fearful thing to a lot of people is if we represent truly who we are, and if other people are going to accept that or not. Oh, yeah. It's extremely powerful. And what becomes more powerful, why the agreements play into that conversation, is because that individual that you're really supposed to be and what you feel inside of you has been tainted by other people's rewards or punishments, right? Mm-hmm. And whether it's right or wrong in that moment, parents, other people, teachers, coaches did the best that they could in that moment. I believe that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's who you are and who you are made to be, right? And the biggest fear is that what happens when I truly tell this person what I think, or what happens when I tell my wife my biggest, darkest secret that I've never told anybody. What's really going to happen? That's the biggest fear, not death. Because in that moment, in that conversation, death is a very easy way out. But facing the reality of who you really are and then letting other people know can be crippling for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's one of the biggest fears. I just thought that was a really profound thought, And, okay, I'll say one more before the first agreement. Sorry, I lied.
Wasn't I supposed to keep you on track?
Yeah, I know. We're way into it. I think my phone died. That's supposed to have a timer on it. We reject ourselves because we are not who we pretend to be. Mm. And I just thought that was a profound statement, because there's so many people in our lives, well-intentioned or ill-intentioned, that have tried to get us to be who they thought we should be, right? And so many times we don't like who we are at the end of the day. And it's not really because we don't like who we are. It's because we don't like who we're pretending to be, because that's what everybody else said we're supposed to be.
Because you're rejecting yourself.
And I feel like that's a statement like that's just gonna like you could think about that for a week and just reflect on how many times that shows up in your life and how many different ways, you know. It's just really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all on my intro. Anything else on the intro?
No, we got to get into these.
All right, we got to get into the 4 agreements. All right, first one, and I'll let you speak first to it. Be impeccable with your word. That's the first agreement.
Okay, this whole chapter, when I was listening to it, I was like, yes. It was really good. I liked it. And impeccable with your word. And I'm not, I apologize, babe.
I'll give you a minute. So, you know, the first one for me is don't go against who you are. To be impeccable to your word means you have to know what your word is, and to know what your word is means you have to know where it comes from, right? So if you're being impeccable to your word and you're saying and you're following up and you're delivering on what you say you're going to do, which everybody would say they want, that means you got to know who you are at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And you can't be impeccable with your word if you're just saying what you think somebody else wants to hear, right? Mm-hmm. It has to be who you really are. Because if it is who you really are, then it's pretty easy to be impeccable to your word, right?
Yeah. I've always been fascinated by the power of your words. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the reasons why I love this chapter, just because it was just the way he talks about when you speak and the power that it gives. And he says magic. Your words have the power to have magic, and it also has the power to have dark magic. Yeah. And in the past, I've used the word, or I've heard it before, curse. Like when you use negative words and, you know, like I say, hey, John, those shoes, they just make you look like you have clown feet.
Stink.
That's the worst insult I could give you.
I could actually say nobody's ever said that to me because I have size 8 feet. You heard it here, okay? I have really small feet, so.
Well, I should make fun of you. Like your haircut is just really, it's jacked up.
I'm short. Just make fun of that. That's a real thing.
Yeah. I can't do that. I can't do that. All right. And then, so my word, that's actually, it's like how he uses dark magic. Well, now you're thinking like, oh, wow, I actually am very insecure about my hair. You know, it's receding a little bit, and just kidding. And
no fear.
And then now he puts this on himself, and I think I love the story that he used in the book was a little girl's singing and bouncing, and the mom's got a headache, and she's holding it, and then finally she's like, stop, you sound horrible. Yeah. And now the girl grows up the rest of her life never singing because those words affected her so much that she really believed it. Yeah. That she sounded horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, words are really powerful. And we'll circle back to 180 of this because truthfully, we don't decide how anybody reacts, right? Like that's a choice that everybody makes. However, being impeccable to your word and truly what you mean in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. Your words are extremely powerful. Yeah. And that's a great point. And
while I was reading this chapter, I thought of the Proverbs that we read the other day where it says to speak life.
Yeah.
And
man, that was a good point.
But the second half of that scripture talks about how it affects you when you speak life to others. Because I was like, oh, yeah, speak life into people. But the second half of the verse is like, because it's good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, the verse actually says nothing about the other person. Yeah. It only says what it's going to do for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super powerful. That's a good point.
And I just want to like get in front of my girls and say, okay, let's everyone say it. You're beautiful. You're strong.
A mighty warrior.
I'm a mighty warrior.
Good. That's all I have on that one. Anything else?
That's good. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so number 2, right? Man, this is a big one.
Let's skip this one.
We can't skip this one.
Yeah, because this is the hard one for me.
Don't take it personal.
No.
I'm telling you, the more I listened to this and the more I thought about it, like the amount, also we have not talked about this book at all. So you're getting like a real raw reaction between us. We literally because we decided to do that differently than we did before, to try and make it a little bit easier on here. Anyway, so this is a real reaction, so I'm excited about this, but don't take it personal. The amount of freedom that comes from this statement, when you like really, really, really grasp this at a really, really core level,
it's true,
is unbelievable, right? Because this is it. This is what I talked about, the 180 of what we were just talking about. So nothing anyone else does is because of you.
Yeah.
Nothing. And I feel like I should say that 100 times just so that you really think about it. Because I feel like that statement is just like, oh yeah, okay. No. Like literally nothing anyone does is because of you. It's not. It's their choice to do it. Whether I persuade somebody or what, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the other individual, it was their choice to do that. And that's not a rubber stamp to say, go be an idiot, right? But it is a, hey, stop punishing yourself, right? Yeah. I mean, we face this in reality, right? And this is something that we've been working through over the last year. But if you do something, it's not because of something that I've done. That's a really hard thing. It's a hard thing, but also a really freeing thing to understand, because can other people cause harm? 1,000,000% they can, right? But can they cause somebody else to go do another action? It just can't happen, right? And that's just a really powerful statement. Yeah.
And that's, with all the other 3 agreements, I was like, yeah, I could work on this. I could do this. I'm going to set up reminders. But this one, I was like, are you sure? I mean, like, this is just how I am. But that's, to use my words in a magical way.
What's so hard when we're raised by reward, or punishment to make somebody else happy, to realize that what I'm doing can't actually make that person happy, because it's so entrenched in our thinking that to now say, don't take it personal. It's not because of you. That's also a pride thing, right? Just because somebody sees growth in their life, all of a sudden, like, that's not because of me. That's because that person chose to make a difference in their own life, right? It doesn't mean I can't give the opportunity and create awareness, but it means at the end of the day, opportunity and awareness means nothing without a choice to act on it, right? And that's the power here. And it's the power to let go of your pride, because it's not about you. It's about the individual that's choosing to grow there. And it's also about hey, let go of some of that weight. Don't take it so personal. If you have a really stressful day, and this is something I'm continually working on, right? It's really easy for me to take that introspectively and be like, oh, she's mad at me. She's pissed at me. What did I do now, right? It doesn't mean I did anything now, right? That was her choice in that moment, right? That was your choice in that moment to react that way, whatever it was, a whole bunch of things, right? But it was your choice in that moment to react that way. And so it works both ways, Yeah.
I think I believe I'm getting better on it, but I do remember you would come home from work and just have this look of you that just didn't look like the happy John I would love to see walk in. And I literally would look around and go, okay, what is it?
Yeah.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
So, and I had it really bad. And I believe through, the grace of God, I'm definitely learning to conquer this.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of growth there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, like, take that statement and just reflect on it over and over again. Nothing anyone else does is because of you. It's not. It's truly because of their choice to do it in that moment. Yeah. Solely.
And I love that one point he says is, you get to choose what you believe.
Yeah. Man, that's powerful. And he says after that, right, that you're the director. You are the director of your own movie, And one of the videos that I watch every morning is Joe Rogan's clip about Be the Hero, right? And so it's this short clip that says, look, basically, you're the director of your own movie, right? You get to decide who you are in that movie. Do you want to be the victim in that movie and not do what you know you should do? Or do you want to be the hero? Like, either way, You hold the power. You're the director.
Yeah.
And that's just an extremely powerful concept. Okay, we got to move on. Anything else on there?
No.
All right.
Number 3.
Next, don't make assumptions.
Oh, so good. Yes.
Man, this is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Assumptions, expectations. Wow, there's so much here. All right, you
Don't
started.
get John started on expectations.
That's a different
That's
podcast.
a book. No, it's not a podcast. That's a book.
Okay, it's a Joe Rogan podcast.
it's
Joe
a good-
Rogan's podcasts are like 3 hours long.
Okay.
So
Well, when he invites you on, please give it.
you heard it here.
Oh man, that was good.
Okay, so
Good one.
first point I have, right, is assumptions come from agreements that we have made, right? So, okay, let me think of an example. When you were a kid, you were disciplined if you did something wrong, and you were rewarded if you did something right. And that was based on an individual's perspective in that moment, right?
Yeah.
So what we grew or got entrenched into our mind was that if we do this, it means this, right? And what happened there is, so our brain, man, this is a little sidetrack, but our brain exists to keep us alive and to
Right.
be really, really efficient, right? And so when our brain says, okay, hey, we've experienced this before, it likes to put it in autopilot. That's the subconscious part, right? Studies show between 85 and 95%, depending on what study you look at, of your decisions are subconscious. They don't even hit your conscious level. That's powerful. Again, another whole podcast. But what happens is we start to form assumptions because of that. And your brain takes over and says, every time this happens, this is going to happen, right? And now you come into agreement, or you say, well, that's truth. Every time this happens, this is going to happen. And that could be really, really good, or it could be really, really bad, depending on what that is. But the problem is the assumption part of it. Because if we start assuming we know what's going to happen, or this is going to happen, that's all fear-based. It's based on fear of what the consequences are, right?
Yeah, and he goes into like what can you do to keep yourself from making all these assumptions? And the first thing was to ask questions, and I was like, yes, because I love to ask questions. And in the past, I've used that as like temperature gauging. Like he walks in with that look, "What's wrong, John? What happened? What'd you do today?" But in this way, it's I've become a little more direct. So when I assume that, you were going to be at home at this certain time and you're not there, instead of texting, "John, where are you?" like, "Hey, how's it going? Are you killing it today?" And then he, every time, like, "Yeah, I'm packing up. I'll see you soon." So
Yeah.
it's like
Every time.
I don't know.
Almost every time.
Yeah, every time.
Assumptions are big. There's a lot here. We don't have time to get into it, but assumptions really get you into trouble a lot of times, because especially if it contradicts who you really are and what your truth really is. I don't know if this was your point or mine, but I liked it, so I'm going to count it as mine.
Wait. Is it? Can you imagine?
Nope.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I like that one. Can you imagine a world without assumptions? Like if we didn't just assume everything that's around us, each individual person just assumes that you're going to be the next person that pulls out in your car.
Right.
Nope. Or they think, oh, it's me. So the other person assumes that. But, that's that. But if everyone just communicated more and we didn't assume okay, that was mine. I thought you were going to take mine.
No, that's a great point, and I wasn't going to make it, but that's a great point, right? And what would happen in that world is that we would communicate so much clearer and so much more, but so much clearer, because we just wouldn't assume. Like, I wouldn't assume that Joe knows that I don't know what in the world we're doing after this, right? This is date night. I have no idea, right? And anyway, sidetracking a little bit, but that assumption part just creates an extra opportunity for clarity and communication, which lessens the expectations, which lessens or eliminates the assumption part of it, and just clearly communicates what actually is going to happen, or what actually somebody's thinking.
All right, say your good point.
Mine is, your love won't change anybody. And that's a powerful statement.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get a whole lot into it, but
the
assumptions we place on, if I do this, this is going to happen, wreck our world a lot of times, because we put so much pressure on ourselves that we, and really there's pride there, right? That we can change this individual. And again, there's a lot here, but you can't. It's that individual's choice, whether to change or not. And as much as you love them, they have to choose it for themselves, right?
Again, that's where the real growth is.
Whole lot to unpack there. But okay, number 4. And last, we got to hurry. Always do your best. This was a good one. What do you got?
That brought me right back to a different book, but not only do we always do our best, but also give grace to other people and think like you, that believe that other people are doing their
Brene
best.
Brown's, right?
Yeah. But
that was good.
Yeah, that was good. I'm
Stay
like,
on
wait,
topic.
don't keep talking.
I know,
I have a
I
really
know.
good one.
Okay.
I loved when he talked about your best varies.
Oh, that was good. I wrote that down.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
I think I wrote it down 5 times because we're very hard on ourselves. We make assumptions on ourselves. That's going back to the last one. And we hold ourselves up to these really high expectations. And then when we don't deliver the way that we thought, then we just beat ourselves up. And this just happened to us this week because I had food poisoning. And the next morning, I was like, I'm going to help get the girls dressed. Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to do it. And Grace, I was like, her hair's in 2 little ponytails from yesterday. That's going to work today. Her pants don't quite match, but you know what? It's going to work today. And you know what? I didn't have guilt as they were walking, or shame as they were walking out the door, because that was the best that I could do right there. I could not have done any better. And that was freeing. I was able to go and lay down and rest, knowing that I did everything I could.
That's amazing. There's so much freedom in this point. To realize that doing your best is a sliding scale. As humans, we like to remember things to our best benefit, right? So conversations, even our own paradigm of ourselves, we remember the best that we ever did. And what happens is that we assume we should always operate at this level. When we're healthy, when we've had a ton of sleep, our body's not fighting off anything, the people around us are in a great state, and we had an amazing day and everything came together, and now all of a sudden we got this standard and we assume that every day is supposed to be like that. And the reality is that's not the real world, because your body fights different sicknesses. Your mind fights different thoughts that come into it, right? So no day, no moment is ever exactly alike. And so to do the exact best that you can in this moment right now, number 1 means you have to be present, which is again another conversation. But number 2 puts the onus on yourself, that there's only one person that knows if you're doing the best in that moment. So let's use that for example, right? It was really easy for me that morning to get upset that you were sick. You didn't have a choice that you were sick or not, right? I just have a really hard time empathizing with that. And we've talked about it, but only you knew that you were doing your best in that moment. I didn't even know you were doing your best in that moment, right? But it didn't matter. It didn't matter, right? It goes back to the other agreements. If we're living like that, don't take it personal, right? I couldn't take that personal. You couldn't take it personal. If we lived like that and you knew you were doing the best that you could do in that moment, nothing else mattered. Yeah,
I think because I was sick, my my recovering people-pleasing tendencies were very low. Yeah. So because I was sick and I was catching a little bit of that, just a little bit of stink, from you, like, oh, she's sick. He doesn't like when I'm sick, which it's all right. But I didn't take it personal. Yeah. Because I knew.
Which was huge. Yeah. Huge. Could have ruined your day. Yeah. And to be honest, I think you could have been sick a lot longer.
That's true.
Truthfully. Anyway, not too much. Okay, one more point I have on here. You cannot be alive by living in the past. It just goes back to that point where we relive, we repunish ourselves over and over again for things that we've done wrong. And I am not the guy to say, oh, it's going to be okay. Like to come coddle you. But I am the guy to say, if you're not your biggest number one fan in the world, then you really got to rethink how you're thinking, because you should be your biggest fan, period.
Yeah.
Because you know yourself the best. And if you're not your biggest one fan, how do you expect anybody else to be your fan or give their weight or their words any credibility? Like, looking at your past, that's going to determine your future. You want to stay there, then you're not living in the present. You can't do both, right? You want to continually relive past mistakes, past fears, past failures. You can. You're going to jeopardize the future in this moment right now.
Yeah, like that.
You got anything else on that agreement?
Nope, because I did want to talk about the freedom.
Do it.
One little thing. Oh, experiencing freedom like a child experiences freedom.
Like a 2-year-old. It literally said a 2-year-old, and I just thought of Gwen.
Well, Gwen's 3.
I know she's 3.
Okay.
Okay, she was 2. Okay.
It was recent. Just recently she turned 3.
Yeah, talk about that. That was amazing.
Experiencing freedom because, we have a 3-year-old. I almost said 2. We have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they don't remember what they did a few days ago or a year ago, or that their past is not holding them back.
Yeah.
And even the heaviness of the future doesn't stop them from enjoying the day. And I was like, oh man, where did I lose that? And I was almost going to say, like, where can I find it? But I know where to find it.
Yeah.
When I find myself
Look
and choose.
inside. That's huge.
Yeah.
I just smiled so big when he referenced that, because if that doesn't sum up Gwen more than anything I know, Gwen, our youngest daughter, she has the strongest will and the strongest heart. Grace, if you look at, I love her to death, but if you look at her wrong, she'll cry.
She's a soft heart.
Gwen has this strong will about her that she's going to do whatever she wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
If I, as persuasive as I can be, if I convince her to do something, she's still going to do it in her own way. She will not do it the way I said, right? She'll put on her shoe hanging upside down, if that's how she put on her shoe. She did what I said. And it's just amazing, right? The freedom that's in that, because she's doing, again, there's a balance, okay? I'm not saying you let your kids decide everything, obviously. However, I am saying the freedom that comes from learning who you are and operating truly as who you are, and not what other people want you to be or expect you to be, or what you think other people expect you to be, is unbelievably freeing. Think of a 2-year-old. The terrible twos that everybody say, I think is the freeing twos, right? Like, coin it. I know it doesn't rhyme or anything, but literally that is freedom. That is the young child enjoying life, doing what you want to do. It doesn't matter what our timetable is. Gwen is just going to do her thing. It doesn't matter how many times I say, hey, I'm in a hurry. We got to go. If we don't go, we're going to be late to school. If we're late to school, it doesn't matter. She's going to do her own thing based on what she thinks is right inside of her.
My favorite thing is how she just dances everywhere she goes.
Yes,
like
randomly.
in the grocery store, you just turn around there. She's
all of a sudden
dancing.
You look around and I didn't even know music was playing in that moment, right? Gwen did, because that's what she wanted to do in that moment.
There doesn't need to be any music. She still dances.
That's true.
Love it.
That's good. I have one more point at the end. Do you have anything else?
No, that's
sum it up. Okay, so last thing, right? He talked about heaven on earth. So we talked a little bit about hell on earth, and then he referenced, hey, you can have heaven on earth, which, again, not going to go any deeper than we already have, but I do believe we can experience heaven on earth, bringing the kingdom down, right? I think that's what's going to happen. Anyway, so I'll leave you with this, right? We all have the power to choose in each moment. And you have the power to choose. And what I'm going to ask you to do today is to choose your imagination, right? So imagine what you want to see. Imagine love in the world. Imagine the best in people. What the Bible says, think on these things, like imagine those, right? And choose to believe that as your truth. Because you got to make that choice wisely, right? Whatever you choose to believe, That's going to shape your future. Another book, right? But as a man thinketh, so is he. And so whatever you choose to believe, you are creating your own future.
Mm-hmm.
You are creating what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So be extremely careful on what you choose to think about and what you choose to believe, right? I have chosen, and I'm working on choosing to believe the best in people, right? Because I just want to live like that. I don't want to live believing somebody's going to come to harm me. I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because that puts me in a victim mindset. Like, so much happens there, right? Like, so choose wisely. And if I could challenge you on anything, it's one, to read this book, learn more about agreements, think on a couple of these points, right? But choose wisely.